Okay. Good afternoon. I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, and Merry Christmas. Daisy, can you confirm that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided?
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
All right. Roll call, please.
I will see if we have Commissioner Van Covern, Commissioner Alt, Commissioner Sydow.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Sell.
Here.
Commissioner Farber.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Paget.
Here.
Chair Waters.
Here.
So we have 6 members present. That constitutes a quorum, and we've provided advance notice of today's meeting, so we can proceed with today's meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Are there any corrections to the minutes of the December 3rd meeting? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve
I'll second
minutes.
that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2024 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving into new business. We have item 3.1, application Z 24-4.
So under public hearing items, our only public hearing item today, which we have provided mailed notice and posted a sign on the property, is an application filed by Dr. Robert Moeller on behalf of Molenhofer Properties LLC. And the request before the commission is a change in the zoning district classification of the property from its current zoning, which is R3 multifamily residential, to planned restricted business, or PC1. And the property is addressed as 655 South Santa Fe Avenue. It's located on the west side of, or excuse me, the east side of Santa Fe, between Prescott and Crawford. And Mr. Hers will have a report for you.
Thank you, Dean and Commission. The subject property is 655 South Santa Fe, and it's highlighted on the map on the screen here, where the aerial photo. It is a former Maori Clinic medical clinic, and it is north of Crawford on Santa Fe on the east side of Santa Fe. If we look at the current zoning map, you'll see that it is currently zoned R3, which is our multifamily residential district, and is surrounded by R3 on the north, south, and mostly on the west side as well, with R2 directly to the east. So it is surrounded by residential properties surrounding it. Staff has prepared a presentation that we'll share with you as we go through this. So some background: the property was platted in 1912, and originally the building that was constructed there was constructed in 1947 as a church for Salina Bible Church, and it was later used for the Southern Baptist Church before it relocated to Magnolia and Ohio. In 1990, a conditional use permit was approved for a medical clinic to be established on this property, and a CO was issued for that conversion later that year. In 1991, the City Commission approved an ordinance that eliminated medical and dental clinics as conditional uses in the R3 district because they didn't feel it was a adequate or compatible use in the R3 district because of the intensity is typically associated with medical clinics versus medical offices. And so what that meant for the clinic is it was allowed to remain as a clinic until it was either damaged 50% more of either fire damage or tornado or something like that, or if it were to cease being used as a medical clinic for 12 months or more. In this particular case, the property did cease to be used as a medical clinic for more than 12 months. Dr. Moeller, who is a local dentist in town, has acquired the property and is attempting to reestablish it as a medical/dental clinic. And so the options we gave him is the only option that he really has is to attempt to rezone the property to a Plan C1 district and try to limit any negative impacts there might be on the surrounding area, noting that that would be an example of spot zoning, which we'll go through here as we go through our presentation. So the R3 district, as I said, does not allow for the proposed dental clinic to be established. So the applicant, Dr. Mueller, is proposing a PC, planned restricted business district zoning. In this case, this is going to be similar to the Maverick case we had a couple months ago, where you have a proposed planned development district where you're going to be reviewing first the zoning and whether or not the proposed zoning is compatible with the surrounding area. In this case, again, R3 to PC1. The second action is going to be reviewing a site development plan and looking at the site plan, the landscape plan, the building elevations, and determining whether or not it's compatible with adjacent uses, as well as conforming to the criteria of attachment 7, which is the standard criteria that we review when we're looking at final development plans. In this case, the applicant is also requesting 2 variations. One variation is a variation for the front or the rear yard setback. The C1 district requires a 25-foot rear yard setback. The existing rear yard setback is 4 feet, and so the applicant is requesting a variation from that. He's also requesting a variation for the landscaping buffer. When you have a property that is adjacent to a commercial property that's adjacent to residential properties, there's a 10-foot landscaping buffer. If you have multiple adjoining property lines that are adjacent to residential, in this case you have residential to the north, to the east, and also to the south, which requires a 10-foot landscape buffer along all sides, and the site, because of the way it's been developed historically, does not have room for that, and so that would be the second variation that's being requested. If you were to approve these variations, what it would mean is if the property were to be destroyed by a natural disaster or fire or something along those lines, it could be rebuilt to how it is currently sitting out there today in the field. The primary purpose of the C1 zoning district is to provide a restricted commercial alternative to multifamily development where it is adjacent to arterial streets and highways, and at the same time avoid your typical strip commercial development that you might see on like a South 9th or even on areas of Ohio. To achieve this end, a very limited number of non-retail type businesses are permitted. And in this case, the C1 district does allow for medical and dental clinics. Staff would note that the R3 districts, because of that amendment in 1991 that eliminated medical and dental clinics as potential conditional uses, is not really an alternative for how the applicant wants to use the property. Staff recognizes that the zoning request is a difficult one, simply because on one hand you have a use, which is a medical/dental clinic that has been in use for over 3 decades, over 30 years. On the other hand, you have a situation where in order to reestablish the dental/medical clinic, it's going to require spot zoning, which is generally discouraged by the code. So staff would note that because the subject property is surrounded by residential properties, the applicant has proposed to rezone to PC1, and this added planning element does allow you to place additional restrictions that might reduce the negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. So the staff has listed out a number of alternatives for you. One, you could recommend approval of the requested zoning change from R3 to PC1, including the variations of the rear yard setback and the landscape buffer, with any conditions that you feel are appropriate. You could recommend approval of the requested zoning change to PC1 with no variations being granted. You could postpone consideration if additional information is needed, or you could recommend denial of the application citing the reasons thereof. So we do have a number of potential conditions that you could entertain if you chose to approve them. One is that the use of the site would be restricted to R3 district regulations plus medical and dental use, meaning it would be virtually the same as the current zoning, except it would allow for a medical/dental office to be reestablished on the site. The subject property would be limited to the bulk regulations of the C1 district, with the exception of the 4-foot rear yard setback being allowed. And we would echo or recommend the restrictions that the original 1990 conditional use permit had on signage, and limiting the site to one freestanding 32 square foot ground sign or monument sign, as well as one 32 square foot wall sign. And we would have the illumination of those signs be limited to internal illumination with push-through style internal illumination. So the entire cabinets wouldn't be lit up, but there would be a push-through system where graphics or text could be illuminated, but not the entire sign. And then for construction of the property would be in conformance with the plans that are being proposed, and all of this would take place within 18 months. And we do have findings for approval and denial in your packet. And so that would be the first item, and I would suggest we go into the site development review, and then we can tackle the items separately, item 1 being the rezoning and item 2 being the site development. So for the site itself, we have a lot that is almost 27,000 square feet, a little over half an acre, and it consists of a building that, with the bump out covered entrances that are being proposed, would be about 7,600 square feet. The parking lot paving area is a little over 11,000 square feet, and the green space and landscaping area is about 7,600 square feet as well. The setbacks, the building would be set back with the bump out additions about 105 feet from Santa Fe. And then on the north, you'd have about a 12-foot setback. On the south, you'd have a 24.5-foot setback. And again, on the east, you're only going to have a 4-foot setback, which is why the rear yard variation is being requested by the applicant. Building elevations, here are some building elevation drawings to show what the applicant is proposing. So the bump out coverings of the entrance are going to have stone columns that are accented by heavy timbers. And then the existing brick, the applicant is proposing to paint all of the brick. And then the roofing would be asphalt shingles with aluminum downspouts and guttering systems to direct water away from the building. So here is rendering facing west, facing Santa Fe. Here's another view of that, but you can see the vertical column stone columns and the heavy timbers that create the covered entrances. The south entrance would be the entrance to the proposed dental clinic, and then there is leftover space that the applicant is proposing to rent out and lease to a second tenant, and that would be the north entrance there. Here are views from the north and to the south. You can see again the coverings that are being proposed. And then the off-street parking. Dental clinics require one off-street parking space for every 200 square feet of their office area, their medical office area. In this case, the proposed dental clinic would require 17 off-street parking spaces. There are currently 30 spaces on site, and 2 ADA parking spaces are being required, and 2 are also being proposed. So the proposed plan meets the off-street parking requirements. Excuse me. The entrance off of Santa Fe is an existing entrance that's 24 feet wide, which is less than the 30-foot maximum that is allowed, and 24 feet is pretty standard for a two-way, one-way in, one-way out type of driving aisle or entrance, so that would be appropriate for a development like this. landscaping. When the 1990 conditional use permit was approved for the Maui clinic that was here previously for Doctors Hodges and Marshall, 4 shade trees were required in the landscape area. Under the current landscape regulations, 2,025 square feet of front yard landscaping is required in the front yard area, and under the plan, 2,250 square feet of front yard landscaping is existing. There are 3 trees that have survived or that are there and existing. One of the trees that were originally installed or planted has died and been removed and will be replaced by a maple tree. So there will be 4 shade trees with the proposed plan. Landscape regulations also require that parking lots be screened with shrubs. In this case, the plan doesn't show any shrubs being proposed, but there is an existing row of shrubs there today. And so one of the questions that staff would ask is if those shrubs are going to be retained or if they're going to be replaced with other shrubs, and just getting clarification from the applicant on that. Another landscaping element is the landscape regulations require a trash corral that's fully enclosed on the site to contain a trash dumpster. In this case, we don't have a location of any trash corrals being proposed, and so we would ask the applicant to clarify how he plans on handling trash refuse on the site. And then lastly, the landscape buffer that the applicant is requesting a variation from. There isn't space on the north, south, or east sides for a 10-foot landscaping buffer, so that requirement is being asked to have relief from those requirements. Signage, the C1 district would allow for a single freestanding sign not to exceed 32 square feet, as well as a wall sign of 32 square feet. And so we would have that as a potential condition that the applicant or that the Planning Commission could approve. So we did note a few questions or clarification items that we would ask the applicant to help us with. One is the proposed exterior colors. The plans show that the existing brick would be painted, but we're not sure exactly what the exterior colors would be. Number 2 is the screening shrubs that we mentioned, whether or not the existing shrubs are going to be retained or if they're going to be replaced with new shrubs. And then also clarification on the trash refuse and how that will be handled. And then elevation drawings of any proposed signage if there was any plans for new signage and what that might look like. And so should the applicant provide sufficient information regarding these clarification items, we do believe that the plans demonstrate satisfactory quality of design and compatibility and meet the development criteria of attachment 7. And so we do have the following alternatives. You could recommend approval of the proposed site development plan subject to any conditions you feel is appropriate. You could recommend approval of the proposed site development plan subject to certain revisions or corrections being made. You could recommend denial of the proposed site, submitting and citing the reasons thereof, or you could postpone consideration if additional information or changes are needed. We do have a number of potential conditions that we can go through. One is that a final site development plan be submitted that reflects the plans that are being approved, if you approve them. Number 2, construction and use of the property would conform to the building code, the International Building Code to be specific. The proposed building should be constructed with gutter and downspouts to effectively direct water away from the building and away from the neighbors and towards Santa Fe Avenue. And one of the items we put in here as optional, and it's really up to you, is an 8-foot tall screening fence shall be constructed along the east property line in lieu of the 10-foot landscaping buffer. Staff did receive a call from a neighboring property owner to the east that felt that a 10-foot fence or an 8-foot fence would be would be helpful to have something like that, and so that's an option that you might have as a condition of approval. The applicant should submit a site lighting plan and fixture cut sheets just to make sure that any exterior lighting is downcast and isn't going to spill on the neighbors or adjacent streets. Number 6, the project shall be completed in substantial conformance to the approved plans. 7, a building permit shall be obtained within 18 months. And then 8, that all requested revisions shall be made to the site plan and landscape plan prior to the city commission consideration of the site plan. So any correction items or anything that you feel needs to be adjusted or amended will need to be done before we take this item to the city commission. And we also have a condition that if you feel that additional work is needed for the site to be in conformance to attachment number 7, that you could give guidance as to what revisions are needed for that in order to conform to the surrounding area. With that, staff will take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dustin. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff?
Yeah, Dustin, could refresh my memory, how long has that property been vacant?
To be honest with you, I'm not 100% certain. I know it's been a few years, but perhaps the applicant would know the specific date.
Thank you.
And with that being a medical facility for, I don't know, 30-something years, has there been complaints from surrounding neighbors regarding that type of business there? Or
Well,
concerns?
None recently. I know when the conditional use permit in 1990 was approved, at that time it was a little bit controversial, and that's why the city commission amended the ordinance to not allow medical and dental clinics in the R3 district anymore. But in terms of like anything recent, I think it's one of those things that as time went on and it was there, people got used to it, and I don't know that it was an issue after that, but maybe Dean has more history on that.
Yeah, I don't think in any of the recent history there's been many complaints about the hours of operation or how it's operated. It doesn't have a great deal of, doesn't produce a lot of light, and it's never been a case where parking has overflowed or any types of things like that that would tend to irritate neighbors. So it's been a fairly quiet use.
What about the neighbor to the east that contacted the office?
Yeah,
Context?
their biggest concern was that, and part of it may be because the building's been vacant, but there are people that well, let me pull up a map just to help. So there are people that kind of walk through this area, and for whatever reason they tend to walk along this fence line of these residential properties to the east behind the clinic. And it may be one of those things that because the building is vacant, there's just more people over there versus if it weren't vacant, maybe there wouldn't be as many people there. I don't know. That's kind of speculative. But there are, according to the neighbor, there's people that walk through there, and having a taller fence in the back he felt might help. I don't know if dissuade them or just make it so that it's not apparent that they're walking back there. I don't know, but that was his idea.
Was there a call or a letter from the
It
neighbor?
was a call. It was a phone call.
Bob Mueller. How are you guys? Just on that comment there, like when that windstorm came through, it blew like half the fence down. And so I don't know if that's maybe part of the issue, why they're like, yeah, we want a fence back up. So, but they just left it in ruins. But I went in and cleaned it all up. So like half the fence is down, half of it's still up, but it's in disrepair. It needs to be redone anyways. So, as far as the occupancy, I think it was probably at least a year before I bought it. And I bought it in 21. So October of 21, around that time. So those are ballpark it
All right.
timeframe that I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mueller. All right, are there any more questions of staff before we move on? Okay. Are there any, is there anybody online?
We do have the project architect online, and we also have our student representative, Mr. Hanson, online as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Mueller, do you have any more comments for the commissioners other than what you've already shared with Dustin's presentation?
Nope, I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have for me.
All right, commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Mueller?
So I do. This would be, so the south half would be your dental practice, and is that correct?
The north half. It'd
oh,
be
the
like
north
the
half.
north 3/4 of it, actually. And
Okay.
so the south quarter would be potential lease space or growth, or my growth into it.
And would you have other dentists working with you?
That's one of the goals for
Okay,
me, yes.
okay.
Yes. That's,
I
the
hear
office
that's an
I'm in
issue
is too
everywhere.
small right now to bring anybody else in, so.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So do you feel the parking would be adequate for the number of offices that you'd have and
30,
shared?
I have like 8 right now, so 30 spaces will feel enormous for us. Yeah, I think it would be sufficient.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
How about the dumpster question?
So the dumpster proposed, where it currently sits is on the north side, and it is fenced in currently, and so they would just have to make sure that our pickup is before hours, which it is now, so they would come in, open the fence, it's a front load, and then put it back and close the fence, and then people would be able to park there all day long. So,
Can you pull up the map, Dustin? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I'm pulling that up now, Bob, so you can point that out. And is it up towards the building somewhere?
yeah, it's right there.
Right
So
here.
currently it sits back where like the 055 is, to the right, yep. Like right there is where it currently sits, so we'd just bump it out and we'd have it fenced in with the rest of it.
When you say bump it out, what do you mean, like more to the north?
The west,
To the west?
because they can't drive the truck back in the back with the proposed addition where it currently sits, so we just move it out at the end of the parking lot, but it would be completely fenced in.
Bob, have you settled on a building color yet?
It's gonna be neutral colors, probably black trim, probably like, dark browns, like natural wood like colors, even though it's gonna be brick, but it'll be nothing, no like bright orange or pink or anything like that. So
Okay, so
my current building is gray and white trim, so it's not gonna venture far from that. So, the signage question, I can pass this up to you. This is my current sign. It's not going to be much different than that. Actually, that's my current logo. Do something similar. And once we have the actual design and everything, we'll run it through the committee again to get approval for the actual sign that goes through.
Landscaping plans, anything?
What's there, up against the building, we're gonna redo the landscape there for sure. Keep the north and the east and the south grassed with the landscape around the west side of the entrances and that sort of thing. The front area between the parking lot, and we're gonna clean up the trees, clean up the bushes.
You're gonna keep the bushes?
We'll keep the
shrubs-
bushes,
shrubs?
yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. So if it's dead, we'll replace. Just this last year, I had them clean all that out and remulch it. So we'll probably put some landscape borders in and that sort of thing to kind of. That's my plan.
Okay. Have you read the staff's recommendations on both the zoning and the site plan that are in our report? And do you have any comments on any of those recommendations?
It's I'm here to find out what you guys will allow us to do, and so that's the plan that I would
Okay.
like to have. Obviously, if there's some,
Pass the sign.
if it's possible, that'd be fantastic, because I think it's going to really make the area look a lot nicer than it does and has, and so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any other questions of Dr. Mueller?
What are your thoughts on this 8-foot tall screening fence on that east side?
It would, I don't know.
I mean,
I didn't go around
it's
to
a
the back,
6
so-
foot, it's a 6 foot privacy fence right now, so going up another 2 feet, privacy fence is, I don't have a problem with that.
That won't affect any of your landscaping plans in the back on
No,
there?
I was gonna put and the whole fence needs to be redone anyways, and I was just gonna go in and do it.
Okay.
So if we have to go 8 feet, that's fine. It's 6 foot right now, I think, so.
All right, any other questions of the applicant?
And basically, this picture was taken, I think, May of this year. It's not going to look too different than that then, right? Did Dustin say there's going to be another tree added or something?
Yeah,
about
this
the
is
tree?
really, I mean, this is basically what it looks like now. The proposed tree is towards the south end over here, so you'll have one tree north of the drive, you'll have the 2 existing trees, and then a third at the south end. Those would be your 4 trees. The shrubs here are the existing shrubs that were mentioned that Dr. Mueller is suggested he's going to retain, and then the ground sign that has historically been on the site is right on the south edge or south side of the driveway entrance, and so this is where that sign would be. You know how many square feet this particular sign is, Bob, if you were to relocate it? Do you know if this is 32 square feet, or do you know?
I don't offhand.
Okay. Something similar to this would certainly work with a push-through lighting if it's going to be illuminated. Is it going to be illuminated, or?
So the way, mine's not illuminated now. I mean, I don't want anything, like the big digital signs or anything like that. I'm not gonna do. If anything, it would have been just a low voltage landscape line, light, just so that way if somebody's coming in or something like that, just doesn't hit it or anything like that. But I have no plans for any bright signs or bright lights on my building or the sign.
So if that were the case, you could modify the condition on signage to also allow external illumination. So internal push-through illumination or external illumination, but not full internal illumination, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that would be an option for you, is if you wanted to approve a sign that with external illumination.
All right, any other questions?
Like I said, I don't have final designs on that sign yet. So if you want to have it internal illumination, just push through, not the whole sign. I don't have a problem with that type of sign either. So.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Mueller? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience live that would like to speak? Okay, Dustin, does either individual, our student member and the architect, do they wish to speak?
Yeah, we can see if they have, if Mr. Knight or Mr. Hanson have any thoughts.
I don't really have anything to add, just here for answering questions if anybody has any.
Okay. All right, thank you. I open it up to the commissioners for discussion.
Well, I feel that corridor is largely medical anyway. And certainly the neighbors have had a view of a medical type facility there for a lot of years. And it would be nice to see something go in there and that property be put to good use, in my opinion.
I concur.
I'd agree.
Yeah. All right,
With that in mind, I would make a motion to approve this request. We're going to do these one at a time, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So this is application Z24-4 with the 8 recommendations that are listed on page 18 and 19 by staff.
And then to also allow external lighting on.
And I think it would be wise to go ahead and add that external illumination option for Dr. Mueller as well, so he doesn't have to return for that.
I agree.
Just.
Am I getting ahead? Was I on the wrong one?
Staff,
Five of them.
I want to make, Dustin, do we need to approve zoning all by itself first and then move to the
Yeah.
site? Okay.
I think
So-
just to make it clean, we'll do
Okay.
that with whatever conditions you approve with the zoning.
Okay,
And
so-
then any conditions you have for the site plan would be separate on the second action item.
All right, so on the zoning, Chad, if you want to go, what page was that on? Oh, it was there-
15 and 16.
Is it 15? Okay, excuse
Could
me.
be 15 and 16.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes,
I'm with you. You just want me to start over, Madam Chair?
please do.
All right, I would move approval of changing this zoning to PC1 with the recommendations that are listed on page 15 and 16 of our packet that we have here.
Second.
All right, there's been moved and seconded to approve application Z24-4, the zoning classification from R3 to PC1 with the recommendations on page 15 and 16. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, second motion, please.
You want me to come back with that one, too?
Yes, please.
Real quick before we jump to this,
Yes.
did the conditions of approval, were you just wanting the internal illumination as it's listed, or did you want to add external illumination as an option?
On number 3, I think, I'll let Commissioner Farber, since he made the motion.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, condition number 3. Did you want to add external lighting on condition number 3?
That was my original intent, so if we could adjust that motion to include external illumination as well.
Yeah, is there the second as well?
Second.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion. All right. Now, I will also make a motion to approve the, where I was before, on page 18 and 19, there are recommendations from staff that will help out with this. There are 8, if I remember correctly, 8 recommendations on
Yes.
page 18 and 19. So I would move approval to finish up this application Z24-4 with those 8 requested conditions.
And the fence,
The fence, yeah.
8-foot fence.
And that's number
That's number
4. It's on there already.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. We have no legislative matters. We'll move into administrative items, application P18-1B.
So for your administrative items tonight, we have an existing platted commercial subdivision on the east side of South 9th Street, actually the east side of Marketplace, a parallel frontage road, and there is a request to further subdivide that property into 8 lots, 7 of which would be developable, and the 8th lot would be a standalone lot for a detention basin. And Mr. Roberts is going to present that item for you.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Commission. Dustin, can we go ahead and start with the PowerPoint, please? Thank you. So we have a PowerPoint for this item as well. So we'll start. We have the agenda of just what we're going to cover. It's PowerPoint, but we'll start with project location and background. So this property is an 8.83 acre tract of land located on the east side of South 9th Street between the Marketplace Apartments to the north, and then Sam's Club is located to the south. The property is owned by 9 South Development LLC. The property is commonly known at least in Salina, as the Pumpkin Patch. The property was annexed into the city in 1971 and was zoned A1 agricultural and stayed that way. The property remained undeveloped except for the house and outbuildings that Mr. Dooley, the owner and operator of the Pumpkin Patch, lived in. So in 2018, 9 South Development LLC purchased the property. This kicked off multiple board actions, so we'll do a quick run through of those. So in February of 2018, the Planning Commission approved a preliminary plat and recommended approval of a rezoning request from A1 agricultural to C3 shopping center. Later that year, in December of 2018, the Planning Commission approved a final plat with 4 lots, which is how the property is currently platted. In January of 2019, the City Commission concurred with the Planning Commission and approved the final plat. At this time, it effectively changed the zoning from A1 agricultural to C3 shopping center. And then in October of 2019, the City Commission authorized a special improvement district for water, sanitary sewer, street, and drainage improvements in the 9 South Addition. Following approval of this special improvement district, the extension of Marketplace in front of this property took place. The installation of sanitary sewer and water lines took place, and then installation of a detention pond in the northeast corner of the property also took place. Other than that, no development has occurred since the public infrastructure was completed. So Dustin's got on the screen for you the original plat that was approved for the 9 South Addition. So as you can see, there's 4 separate lots. We call those bowling alley lots. They're rather long and skinny. They don't necessarily lend themselves to the type of commercial development that the developer is looking to do. But this was originally how the property was platted. So the nature of today's request, 9 South Development LLC is proposing to reconfigure the plat of this property to a layout that is more conducive to the planned development of the property for a commercial retail shopping area. The proposed replat would consist of 7 commercial building sites. A separate lot for stormwater detention pond is also being proposed. And your role in this case is to determine that the lots in the proposed replat are all developable and that the replat will meet the city's subdivision regulations. So on the screen, and also located in your packets, is the proposed replat. So as you can see, there are 7 lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 3 on the backside. And then this lot 1 is where the drainage pond is located. So on the original plat, it was a drainage easement, and they're proposing to put that in a non-developable lot called Lot 1. So a couple of notes on the replat. Since the infrastructure was put in, there are easements throughout the proposed replat. Lots 4 and 6 have a 20-foot easement that runs towards the back of them, but splits the lots. And then lot 3 has a 50-foot utility easement that is located that could provide challenges for the development of that lot specifically, but we just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then the other thing to note is lots 3, 5, and 8, which are located east, do not have frontage on Marketplace. So that brings us to our variation request. So lots 3, 5, and 8, as I stated, do not have frontage on a public street, but are proposed to be served by 2 common driving aisles, noted as Reserve A and Reserve B. Those are located right here. So the city subdivision regulations require that all platted lots have frontage on an approved public or private street. However, in this case, the developer is requesting a variation from this requirement. Typically, How this is accomplished with lots that sit behind other lots on a street frontage are they use flag lots where a portion of the back lots of a development, so in this case these 3 lots, there would be a portion of them that would extend out to Marketplace that would preserve access to those back lots. However, in this case, the developer of 9 South is proposing to create shared access through a reciprocal easement agreement in which Reserve A and Reserve B, as noted as common area on the plat, provide access easements to these easternmost lots. So Section 3610 of the Salina Code states that if the Planning Commission finds that particular hardships or practical difficulties may result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulation, and may approve variations or exceptions to the regulations so that substantial justice may be done and the public interest is served. So we just wanted to bring these 4 criteria to your attention. The Planning Commission shall not approve variations unless it shall make findings based upon the evidence presented to it in each specific case. So those 4 criteria are: the granting of the variation will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare, or injurious to the other property. The conditions upon which the requests for a variation are based are unique to the property. Because of the particular physical surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, an extraordinary hardship to the owner would result. Or 4, the variation will not in any manner vary the provisions of the zoning regulation, ordinance, comprehensive plan, or official street classification plan. So staff's analysis of this variation request: the 9 South Edition has frontage on the west side of the development along Marketplace. That stretch of Marketplace was completed along with the previous plat. There is no access to the property from the north, east, or south. The existing platted lots have frontage on Marketplace, but are long, skinny lots that are not conducive to the type of development the developer is looking to do. So in this case, the developer's designers are providing shared access through Reserve A and Reserve B. The reciprocal easement agreement, which is attached at the end of your packet, specifically spells out how access to each lot will be ensured, as well as how the roadways providing access to the rear lots will be maintained. Staff believes that these guarantees are sufficient to avoid the landlocking of any of the proposed non-frontage lots. So we can continue. So this provides an outline of the public improvements that were made, including the drainage pond, which again, we have to reorient ourselves, but this is on the northeast side of the property. And then the water and sewer lines that extend through these front lots here, and then through the back here. And then this is where the 50-foot easement is located for lot. Sorry, gotta reorient myself.
It's lot 3.
Lot 3, sorry. And so we just wanted to draw to your attention that when the public improvements were made, before this replat was proposed, development was thought out. And so we just wanted to bring that to your attention. So the next slide provides an aerial photo that shows the existing water and sewer lines, and then highlights again the drainage pond located up here. So we just wanted to bring to your attention that those improvements have been made and those easements are in place on the current replat. Next is the cover sheet for the reciprocal easement agreement. The highlighted section defines common area, which shall mean the reserve areas identified on the recorded plat of the property within the development, which are for the common benefit of the owners, including without limitation to the stormwater facilities and main access drive. So the developer has drawn out an agreement that would ensure that access is provided to those easternmost lots and that the drainage pond is maintained, and that is spread through the developers, future developers of the lot. So staff would recommend approval of this proposed replat along with the requested variation, subject to certain technical corrections being made to the plat drawing and the following conditions. Those two conditions are the property owners shall execute and record the reciprocal easement agreements providing ownership, shared use, and shared maintenance of the shared access drives, off-street parking areas, and shared detention pond area, including any inlets, ditches, or pipelines associated with moving stormwater off the site with the final plat. And then 2, all technical corrections on staff's corrections punch list shall be made to the final plat drawing and plat certificates prior to recording of the final plat. And with that, staff is available for any questions. And then the engineers are here and a representative of the developer is here as well.
Okay, thank you, Gage. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Gage?
I do. Gage, on this access road system, has that been run by the fire chief by any chance?
Dean, you might be able to speak on that a little more.
No, it has not, but we're just looking at the form of the ownership. We're not looking at a site plan, and so we don't know till we have actual users and tenants how Reserve A or B will be extended. What we're looking at now is how access will be guaranteed to the rear portion and how those ultimately get laid out. There will be site plans submitted for those lots 3, 5, and 8, and the access to all sides of those buildings will be looked at as part of the site plan review. But your review today is to make sure that you believe that the rear lots can be legally accessed from Marketplace and that there are sufficient guarantees in place that, 1, that will happen, and 2, there's somebody that was going to own and maintain those roadways to keep them passable.
Thank you. Gage or Dean, could you give me an example where we've done this someplace?
There are not many examples because the frontage requirement's pretty rigidly enforced, but I can, one example where the Planning Commission has approved it is there is a vacant platted lot that is currently green space that lies between Menards and Interstate 135. And Virginia Court extends to the east of Virginia Drive and provides access to the parking lot for Menards, but the only way that you can access that lot that's east of Menards is to drive through a roadway that's on the Menards site. And so that is not a public street, and that lot does not have frontage, but similar to what is being proposed here, there are reciprocal easement agreements in that development that ensure that the fire department, customers, employees can drive across that roadway on Menard's property to get access to that property. The way it's been done in some other places, if you're familiar with Midstate Plaza, there's a number of outlots that line the west side of South 9th Street, such as the bank and Schlotsky's and those. And so essentially the Midstate, the main mall portion, is a flag lot, and so that roadway that comes out to the traffic signal, that's part of the back lot. So as Gage indicated, there's 2 ways to do it. One way is to flag the back lots out to Marketplace and have that strip be part of the back lots. The problem with that is there's 2 driveway openings and there's 3 lots back there, so it doesn't match up perfectly. And so the other example was just at your last meeting with Mr. Bakhta's development up on Bakhta Court. There were 2 lots. The front lot had frontage on Bakhta Court, and then the back lot, because the cul-de-sac didn't extend all the way to the west, that had an access easement to get from the cul-de-sac to the west lot. So that was done just at your last meeting. And so our job is to make sure that there are access easements and arrangements in place that get recorded and run with the land, because we don't want a situation where ownership changes, nor do developers that somebody purchases a property and then can't get legal access to develop it. So that's what we're looking at here, and the actual details of building placement and access around the building that the fire department would normally look at would be done when site plans are submitted for actual buildings.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions of staff? All right, would the applicant or applicant's representative care to share any comments?
Good afternoon, Jeff Mace, 9 South Development, 157 South 7th here in Salina. I just stand for questions, really. The REA is used a lot in other communities. We do this a lot in other communities to address the access question. It reserves, all those lots will have access. It's just done through privately rather than through plotted public access. Makes it a little more flexible, and it also makes it a heck of a lot less expensive than we're not putting curb and gutter and streets and things of that nature in. So it's done a lot. As I said, in other communities, we may not have a lot of examples to point to here in Salina, but those REAs are under review right now by the one deal we actually have fully signed on the site. We're going through this process kind of hand in hand. They're working with their development. We'll be in the ground as soon as we can. But the REA thing's pretty common in other areas. I think staff's familiar. Other than that, I just stand for any questions you may have.
All right, any questions of Mr. Mays?
Yeah, I guess one recent example that Mr. Mays was involved with over there, where you have the Ark Church, Planet Fitness, and Speakeasy, they have reciprocal easement agreements over there. So from the staff perspective, it's not like this is parking for Speakeasy, this is parking for Planet Fitness. All of the parking is available for all the tenants, and that might get used at different times. So that's what they mean by reciprocal easement agreements, that you've got shared access, shared parking, and shared maintenance responsibility.
Is that size similar, or those two examples?
It's not similar from the standpoint that it's got streets on three sides, where this only has the street on the front. But where it's the concept is similar, that instead of having this is the designated parking that's owned by Speakeasy, this is the designated parking that's owned by Planet Fitness, it's all available for common use and access. And so the other, during weekdays when the Ark Church is not particularly active, then you've got spaces that are used by Speakeasies, and then those might be used at other times by the Ark Church. And so from staff standpoint, we look at it as all community parking for all three uses.
So if you were to look at the county appraisal's tax parcel and how they have it lined out, they have the tax parcels, basically the outline of each of the building uses. So this would be the Ark Church, this would be Planet Fitness, this would be the Speakeasy, and then the parking lot is its own standalone property that's shared by all of those other entities. So that's how that's a little bit different, but it's the same idea.
It's like a common area for the use and benefit of all the developers. And so what Mr. Mays has outlined to staff is that Reserve A and Reserve B on the plat will essentially be common area that will be commonly owned, used, and maintained by all the tenants of the shopping center.
This is a good example from a spirit of the intent when we're fully developed. Today, you read the REA, which I wouldn't suggest you do. I don't even like reading them. But today, we control that until we get fully developed. And then we have an association, just like we have here, that everyone has a voting right, and it's maintained by the owners of the various parcels. Until we get fully developed, we as the developers will maintain that control so we can make sure it's working the way we intend it to work, and we don't have a rogue owner here or there, and then we'll establish the association. We don't want to remain involved in it in perpetuity, but we want to control it to make sure it goes the way we anticipate it to go today. So we'll maintain that control as developers. Again, if it's in the REA, if you read it, those reserves are maintained by us until we establish the association that will be managed by the ownerships in their pro rata share of the entire development. If that, but that's exactly what we did here. It's just this is fully developed, and so, you know, we're no longer involved with it. But it's exact same thing we did here.
And a further example would be out where Kohl's and Buffalo Wild Wings and those out there where, as Mr. Mays described, the different businesses pay a proportionate share of common parking lot maintenance, detention pond maintenance, those type of things. And and they all get together and they vote on it's time to redo the parking lot, or it's time to fix this, or we're going to hire this group to take care of the detention pond. So it functions a little bit like a homeowners association, but it's more like a business owners association. So.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Mays?
Thank you all for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment? All right, Dustin, is there anyone online that wishes to make a comment?
We do have Student Commissioner Hanson online, and that would be the only person online right now.
All right. Commissioners, I open it up for discussion or a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve P18-1B. I think the lot layout will flow better with everything instead of the long bowling alley style lots and stuff. So.
Two staff recommendations.
Yes, sorry, 2 staff recommendations.
And that would include the variation as well for the access. The variation that they're using the lots or A and B as access.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve application P18-1B with the variations as noted in the staff report and the 2 recommendations on page 9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right. Staff, is there any unfinished or other business?
I don't believe we have anything to bring back to you. Then I don't believe we're going to have anything scheduled for the January 7th meeting.
Okay.
So we'll give you an extended holiday break. And then we'll reconvene on the 21st. Did want to let you know, I think, confirming with Mr. Michelson, but if you're familiar with the area out by Menards, where we had plans for a phase 1 for Salina destination, which is under construction now, they are moving forward with their phase 2, which is directly to the west of that. And we anticipate on the schedule that we have placing that on the February 4th agenda, or advertising it for that time. And so the concept of what they're doing, it's going to be a planned development district, so similar to what you looked at today with Dr. Moeller's application. Planned development district has 2 components. It has the zoning question and what it should be zoned, and then the second question would be the review of their site development plan and layout. And so what they're proposing is a little different concept that they're calling horizontal apartments. So it will be multifamily and it will be apartments, but the apartments will not be connected to each other. The apartments will be standalone in essentially rows, and so the apartments will be not on top of each other. They'll be spread out horizontally, and then there'll be separation, 10-foot separations between buildings. in a row. And then at the south end, they do plan to do some conventional apartments. But just wanted you to be aware that they're forming up their applications, and we anticipate bringing that phase 2 to you, your first meeting in February.
It's moving along pretty fast there on the first phase.
Yeah, for some, it's not moving fast enough, but we're trying, so.
Okay. All right, I guess I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner.